You're listening to the weekly Parsha podcast recorded with Hashem's never-ending assistance in Ramat B'Shemesh Israel 5775, 2014. This week's Parsha is Parshas Vayeshev, and in Parshas Vayeshev we have the story of Yosef and his brothers, how Yosef is treated in a special way by Yaacov, Avinu by Jacob, and how Yosef, his brothers, are jealous of him, etc. The whole story, which we're not going to get into at length or in a deep way, but what I do want to share with you is again a really beautiful idea that R Nosson shares in helping us to try to understand the character of Yosef. What is his kivun? What is his direction in life? What is his intent? What does he learn from Yaakov Avinu? What does he learn from Jacob? The Parsha starts off and it says, this is in chapter 37 verse 2, it says, Eila told us Yaakov, these are the generations of Jacob. Yosef ben Shvas Shana. So Yosef, his son, he was 17 years old. Hayaroya Esachov Batsoin. He was shepherding the sheep alongside his brothers. Unar es b'nei Bilha es b'nei Zilpa Nishei Aviv. And he would spend time with his brothers who were the sons of the maidservants of Bilha and Zilpa. And Vayave Yosef es Dibasim Ra'el Avihem. Joseph would bring their negative report to their father, to Yaacov. Now, in describing what was Yosef, who was Yosef, what was his kivun in life, what was his direction, what was his personality like, what was he doing? R Nosson tells us that Yosef HaTzadik was somebody who was involved in finding those sparks of goodness, the nekudas tovis, the good points within every human being, within every single Jew. Yosef was searching for them and bringing them out. Yaakov Avinu also, Jacob, we find that he was mired people, he was bringing people close to the light of God. Avram Avinu, Abraham also did that, and Yitzchak followed in his footsteps on this as well. Yosef was continuing the line, was continuing the monumental task of bringing people into the light of God, of godliness. I'd like to read this to you inside. He says like this, Eila talis Yaakov Yosef, V'hinei inyan machlokes Beis Shammai Beis Hillel. We find that there's an argument between the schools of Beis Shammai and the school of Hillel. These were great Tanoim from the times of the Mishnah, and they had their schools and they had their diverging viewpoints. Now, they had an argument, they had a disagreement. When it comes to trying to bring back the souls who are very far away, people who are very distant from God, who are very distant from spirituality, what do we do with those people? Do we try to bring them back? Are we open to receive them if they're interested in coming back? So there was a disagreement. So really a person shouldn't get involved with those people. If anything, getting involved with people who are distant from God, who are distant from spirituality, could drag a person down, drag a person away from Hashem. We find that Beis Shammai's understanding, their gisha, their approach to reality is that, and it's represented by the Hanukkah lights. On Hanukkah we light the candle, so we all know that we light, the first day we light one candle, second day we light a second candle, 2 candles, third day we light 3, etc., until we get to 8. Now that's the opinion of Beis Hillel, which we paskin like. We do based on what Beis Hillel says, that we add on a candle each night. Now Beis Shammai says no. Beis Shammai says we actually are peiches v'hailach. You start off with 8 candles. You start off with 8, and then the second night you light 7. The third night you light 6. So Beis Shammai, what they're coming to teach and what they represent is that it's important to sometimes, or many times, to limit the light. Lahalim ha'or mehen shelo yiskarvu. That you have to be limiting it more and more so that those who are distant not be able to come back, that they not have that light, that they not drag down those who are still in the light. Beis Hillel says, this is how we paskin, this is how we hold. Beis Hillel says, no, we need to add on light. We need to add on light. The first night is 1 candle, the second is a second candle, etc. You keep adding on until the 8th night, and you have 8 candles burning bright. And the idea is that we always need to add on more and more vessels, constrict ourselves more, that it would enable, in order to enable that the light should be able to shine even in those who are distant from Hashem, so that even those who seem distant, and it seems as if they don't have access to spirituality, and they never will have access to spirituality. Beis Hillel says, it doesn't matter, you try, you constrict yourself more, you bring yourself down to their level in a certain sense, in order to shine the light even there. If we try to understand what is this argument, what is this disagreement between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, this is the aspect of this general argument, a disagreement. Every generation has the same exact disagreement between the righteous ones, who try to bring those souls who are distant from Hashem back. There are many who stand up and they say, there are many righteous individuals who argue, because they are, in a certain sense, they are enclosing the attribute of divine justice. And they say, no, those people are distant, they're going to have a negative effect on us, we need to not get involved with that. That's one opinion. But there are those who are of a different opinion, and R Nosson here is referring to Rabbi Nachman himself, who indeed went to those who were the leaders of the Enlightenment movement in the late 1700s and the early 1800s, and he was trying to be mired them. He was trying to bring them back to have a relationship with Hashem, to have spirituality. Now this is the aspect of the argument, the disagreement that the Shvatim, the other 11 tribes had, whether it was Reuven, Shimon, Levi, all of the other members of the Jewish people at that time, the brothers of Yosef, they disagreed with Yosef HaTzadik. Ki Yosef hu bechinas HaTzadik she'ois lekar nefashos l'Hashem yisborach. Joseph was somebody who was the aspect of the righteous one who tries to bring close those who are distant. He tries to add on light every single day, like we saw with Beis Hillel's Shita, the direction of Beis Hillel, which we indeed follow. Because each time he creates deeper constrictions and wondrous vessels, in order to enable those who wish, whoever wishes to be able to come close to Hashem, to have a relationship with God. Yosef. And that's why he was called Yosef. What does Yosef mean? Bechinas moisif v'hoilech. Yosef means to add on. He was adding on light. He was continuously adding on light. Now when it came to the other members of the Jewish people at that time, the brothers, even though they were all righteous individuals, they were very great. They disagreed with him. This is also the understanding. It says that Jacob lived in the land of the dwelling of his father. Yaacov lived in the land of Yitzchak, of Isaac. Our sages tell us in Bereshis Rabbah, what does it mean, Megure Aviv? The word Megure, which means the dwelling of his father, can also be translated as the word from the word Gerim. It has the same root as proselyte. Because he was somebody, Yaakov Avinu, he went back to the land of Isaac, but he was also going back to the methodology of Isaac. Yitzchak was somebody who was bringing people close to Hashem. And so Yaakov Avinu also continued in that way. Vizeh, Eila told us Yaakov Yosef. Now this is the explanation of that which the verse continues and says, that these are the generations of Jacob, Joseph. Why? Because Joseph was continuing the ways of his father Jacob. Joseph was somebody who was noticing where those who were distant from Hashem needed help, needed a hand in order to return to Hashem. And so he was also doing that which Yaakov did, that which Yitzchak did, that which Avraham did. He was following in that path. We find that there's a general rule. Our Chazal, our sages tell us that whatever happened to Jacob also happened to Joseph. Joseph was a continuation of Jacob. As Rashi explains, that Yaakov Avinu, whatever he had received in his learnings from the yeshivas of Shem and Aver, he also gave over to his son, to Yosef. Whatever happened to Yaakov also happened to Yosef. Goes through numerous examples. Yaakov was hated by his brother Esav. Yosef was hated by his brothers. And it goes through many different parallels between the life of Yaakov and Yosef. But Reb Nosson is trying to show us that just like Yaakov Avinu was involved in bringing people close to Hashem, bringing those sparks or finding those sparks in the darkness, so too Yosef was involved in that. And now this whole idea is right next to the concept of the dwelling place of his father, Yaakov. This is to hint to the fact that Yaakov Avinu was involved in bringing people close to Hashem, and Yosef continued working on that great task. Immediately after that it says that these are the generations of Jacob, Joseph. And this is to teach us that Yaakov gave over all of his wisdom to Yosef. And just like Yaakov had the wisdom to be able to constrict himself, to bring himself down to the level of the people who were distant from Hashem in order to raise them up and to be able to bring that light into their lives, Yosef HaTzadik was also continuously involved in this as well, because Yaakov had given over this ability to Yosef. The main wisdom is to bring the conception of God, to bring an understanding, a connection of God into this world, to make known to people the greatness of Hashem, the greatness of God. Now this is the aspect of that which it says in the verse that Joseph was 17 years old and he was shepherding sheep with his brothers. What is the concept of shepherding sheep? And this is something that we see, it's a theme in the Torah, that this is the aspect of the leader of the generation, that we find, just like Moshe Rabbeinu, it was true of him. We find that it's true of Yaakov Avinu, Avram Avinu. All of our the great ones of the Torah, they became leaders of the Jewish people, and they were called Royat Son. They were called a shepherd. So Yosef HaTzadik also had this aspect. That Yosef was shepherding the sheep. So Reb Nosson says something very interesting. He was 17. So 17 is the gematria, is the numerical value of the word tov, which means good. Which means that Joseph was good to everyone, or good for everyone. He was completely good. And because of that, he was able to bring many, many people. Everyone was able to come into the light of Hashem. Because he was able to find, even in the lowest of the low, good points. He was able to find their good points, their spiritual points. And in this way, he was able to bring them close to Hashem. And this is what it means in the verse when it says that he was spending time with the children of the shvachis, the maidservants, the children of Bilhah and Zilpah. What is the aspect of Bilhah? What is the aspect of Zilpah? What are these words? So Reb Nosson talks about the fact that the word Bilhah and the word Zilpah denotes those types of people who the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, the forces of evil have attached themselves to those people. And despite that, despite the fact that they were distant from Hashem, of the 12 tribes, so these children of the maidservants had a certain negativity around them, a certain spiritual darkness that surrounded them. Nevertheless, Yosef HaTzadik went into the darkness. The great righteous person, the one who has this aspect of Joseph, he gets involved with them. He lowers himself to them in order to bring them close to Hashem. And this is what it means that he was acting in a young way. The word nar, so I was translating it before as he was spending time or he was involved with the children of the maidservants. But the word vunar means that he was doing childish things. He was doing young things. Rashi tells us that he was doing childish actions. He was fixing his hair. He was looking at his eyes. He was trying to make himself look nice. So what was the idea? What was the idea? Because a true righteous person, in his great wisdom, he lowers himself to them. He acts childish, so to speak. He lowers himself so much to the point that it seems like he's doing a childish thing. A person wants to be makariv somebody, wants to bring someone close to God. So he has to talk to him on his level. He has to see what interests this person. What is it that this person likes? If I'm going to want to entertain you, I want to bring you a little bit of spiritual understanding. I've got to start off with something that you can relate to. So a person who's a righteous individual, he'll start off speaking, kind of general things, general topics, interesting topics, politics, whatever. But and he's going to eat and he's going to drink with them. Sometimes he's just going to go for a little trip with them, or he's going to play games with them. The entire intent is in order to bring them close to Hashem. He doesn't mention it here, but Rabbi Nachman, so as we mentioned earlier, he was involved in speaking to the leaders of the Enlightenment movement at that time. And one of the things that he would actually do with them is he would play chess with them. He wouldn't discuss any words of Torah. But eventually what happened was, as Rabbi Nachman neared the end of his life, he would say a shir, he would say something for his Hasidim, and these people, the leaders of the Enlightenment movement, they would actually come and sit and listen to his shir. They still maintained their connection to these heretical ideas, to the ideas that were antithetical to Torah. But still, they would come and hear what Rabbi Nachman had to say because he had come down to their level. He brought himself down. He didn't bring himself down. He communicated to them from where they were speaking, from where they were. And in fact, after Rabbi Nachman passed away, they said that if Rabbi Nachman would have continued to be alive, he would have brought them close to God. They would have come back to Yiddishkeit. They would have come back to Judaism and spirituality completely instead of being involved in their false enlightenment. But the idea is that it's possible to go down to their level. Yosef HaTzadik represents this aspect. Like we can see in the words of Rabbi Nachman, how much a righteous person lowers himself to the world. That for him it's all considered a childish act. But this intent, the intent of the tzaddik, the intent of the person is, we're talking about a very righteous individual who can do this. A person has to, of course, be careful, to really be holding on a level in order to be able to do such a thing. But the idea is that Rabbi Nosson is saying that this intent is what Hashem wishes. That the tzaddik is trying to bring close those who are very distant from Hashem. The only way to get them, to access them, is in this way. And this is what it means in the verse, Bechinas, the aspect of Hunaris b'nei Bilha, b'nei Zilpa, as we said, that he was involved with the children of the maidservants. And I'd just like to share an experience that I had this past week. Actually, a week ago, I was in New York because I was filming a video to promote my new CD and to promote my Hanukkah song. So we're seeing, you can go on YouTube and see it. Just type in Hanukkah Light, that's the name of the song. And what I did was, the concept of the video is that I went into Manhattan, and I was there in Manhattan, and I lit a menorah in Times Square, and it was amazing. The idea here, this very idea of Rabbi Nachman, of Reb Nosson, that you have to go into the darkness in order to find the light, or if you want to really shine the light, you have to go into that deepest place of darkness. And the experience that I had there in Times Square was like, it was nighttime, and it was as bright as day, and it was as dark as night. Like on a spiritual level, clearly it was like so stark, the darkness there, even though it was so brightly lit, the spiritual darkness was so great. And lighting that menorah there, the experience of standing there in Times Square, lighting a menorah which represents incredible spiritual light, which is soft, which isn't as bright, anywhere near as bright as all the lights that were flashing around me. But that experience, going down into the darkness, I mean, I'm not a tzaddik, but having that experience, anyone can have that experience of being willing to shine that light, or finding that light in the darkness. I want to bless you, and please bless me back. Hashem should help us, that we should be able to find that light in the darkness. We should be able to truly, when we're interacting with whoever it is that we're mentoring, whether it's our children, whether it's our students, whether it's just being an example out in the world. Sometimes we need to speak to them on their level, speak to our children on where they are. Sometimes we need to talk to them, at the place where they are, and by doing so, we can bring that spiritual light down to wherever it needs to be brought. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful Shabbos. This podcast was made possible through the gracious donations of listeners like you. For more podcasts like this, please visit www.arigoldwag.com or search on iTunes Ari Goldwag.